All right, good morning, everyone. This is class 6 for Revit 212, September 2nd of fall 2020. Today we'll be going over in class today Revit doors, windows, floors, and floors. We'll learn how to do slabs and finished floors today. So we'll go ahead and get started on that. At this point in your progress, At this point in your progress, you should have all your walls done from your floor plan that you created for your house. I just have an abbreviated version right here of a floor plan, just some walls, exterior walls and interior walls to give you an examples on how to insert our doors, windows, and our floors today. So once again, this is what we'll be going over today. So with all your walls in place, if we wanted to select doors, what we will do is we'll go to your architecture tab, your door, your build panel, and your door tool. So when we click on doors, you'll notice in our properties and in our type selector, there are certain doors that are already listed in here. There's just a single flush door with these different sizes available. But the cool thing about Revit is we have a large body of work to pull from when it comes to other doors. And in order to access the other doors, once you hit door, you want to come over to load family. When we do that, this new window will pop up, and this is where a bunch of cool stuff is. If we scroll down here to the bottom, to the other Windows file, double click on that. Here we have a whole bunch of new, and we're doing, obviously I'm not a morning person. All right, we're working indoors. Sorry, y'all. Indoors, we have a whole bunch of cool new doors available. So if we just click on one, just click once, it's going to give you a preview in this panel of what it looks like. And you'll see there's a whole new selection of doors. If you've got rolling overhead doors, double flush panel doors, there's also, if you click inside this residential folder here, there's a whole bunch of new doors available as well. So you can just click on it once so you can get a preview of it. And there's a couple different ways that these get imported into your drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this and just do it again. So once again, to do doors, we go to Architecture tab, Door Tool. I'm going to go to Load Family. I'm going to go to my Doors folder. I'm just going to pick one of these doors in this section to start, and then I'll pick a couple of different ones and you can see how that works. Let's use this one, door double glass, and you can double click on that. When you do that, sometimes you're going to see this new window that pops up. This is going to give you some other information on it where you can select the heights. So there's different ways that we can select the heights and types of doors, heights and widths. So on this one, I'm going to select this 6 foot wide by 7 foot tall one. And notice how I've got that symbol that says I cannot drop a door right here. You have to be attached to a wall in order to insert a door. And notice when I have this I have my temporary dimensions on as well. So this is going to give me an actual midpoint spacing. But if I wanted this door to be located closer to, say, the right wall, I could click on that. And remember how we used temporary dimensions before. We can change the location of these nodes, of these dimension markers, so they align with more of what we want our dimension to look like. So if I wanted my dimension to come from the interior wall to the side of this door, to the opening of the door, and I wanted that to be 8 feet, I can change that to 8 feet. And that'll be that spacing there. So when you put the door in, you can change the actual dimensions by using these temporary dimensions to get the exact placement of that door for you. So it can either be from the side openings of the doors, just by cycling through here, or it can be from the center line of the door. So how you did your measurements was from the wall to the door opening. So I definitely recommend changing that positioning so it lands right there from the interior wall to here. It gets a little confusing because you still have this tool active, but that's the best way to change it right there. So if I just want to drop that in and finish that, I can go ahead and click my modify button. If I did forget to change my dimensions at the same time, I can go back and do it after. So if this dimension ended up changing to say like 7 feet from here, I can change it at this time as well. And notice that we can change it there. So if I wanted to add a couple other doors, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go back to Architecture tab, Build Panel, Door Tool, Load Family. And my doors are still available. Here I'm going to jump into this other tab, this residential file, and we can pick from the window the doors that are available here as well. Let's try this one. And also notice that you have exterior doors and interior doors. Let's try this one. This looks like a typical old New Orleans door. I'll double click on that. On here, we still have that same option to pick the size door that we want. Notice how they go from very small, you know, like a closet sized door. So there's lots of different options. It's just a matter of getting here and rooting around to see if you can find what you want. So you can use these for like small cabinet doors, for small closet doors, all the way up to larger full-size doors. I'm going to pick, well, actually, let's pick a small one. Let's do this one. And let that think. And we'll drop this one right here. And remember, if this for some reason is not going the way you want, you can click on these toggles and flip it around so it faces the direction that you want.
You could also press the space bar.
You can press the space bar, yes. So then we can just drop in those. And then what I like to do when I do this is go to 3D. And then you can see how that's dropped in. So here we have our full-size door from before, and then our smaller door that we just inserted, which is really nice for cabinet doors or closet doors. You can use that as well. So let's click on this one. Say, for instance, that you wanted to change this door. You're like, I don't like that door. That's not what I wanted. With that door active, you can come back to your properties or your type selector. And then if you wanted to pick another door, say you wanted to use this one, you can change the door out very quickly like that. But notice when we did change that door out, the spacing was a little off. So in order to fix that, I'll have to go back to level 1, click on that door again, and then change that spacing. Oops, I made that 6 feet. That's not right. Cancel. Sometimes if you don't want to get it right where you wanted to, it was a little awkward since it was on the other side of that wall, you can just drag that over and then you can use your spacing. There we go. So if you do have an instance where you don't like the door that you selected, you can just swap that out. The same thing applies for floors or windows. It's easily to swap out the different instances of these windows and doors. Okay, so windows work pretty much the same way. The most important thing you have to remember is you want to always insert windows and doors while you're in your floor plan, either level 1, level 2, whatever level that you're working in. So to insert some windows, we're going to go to our window tab. And notice that the windows that are already selected in here are either fixed. These are the ones that are already within the model itself. If we wanted to load other ones, much like we did with the doors, we'd go to our window tool, our load families. Scroll down to windows. And just like the other one, if you click on it once, you'll get an example of what it looks like. Let's just double click on that one. You have the same instance here where you can pick the size that you want. And then once again, you have to have a wall in place in order to insert a window. You also want to make sure that your toggles are on the outside so the window is facing the right direction. This one will flip so you can change the direction of where this is a sliding window to which way it slides. So always make sure that your toggles are on the outside. Once again, if I click on that, switch that around this way. If I don't like this window, I can click on this window, come back to my properties, and I can change that to another window, like that. Here with these temporary dimensions on, I can change the location of this window. You have that lined up like that. One other thing I want to point out about windows, if you click on the window, well, let's go to 3D first. We click on the window. There it is. And notice in your properties, it comes in at a particular sill height, which means the height from the floor to the bottom sill of the window. Now, depending on the measurements of your windows at home, this sill height may not end up being 3 foot. What if it's like, 3.5 or something like that? We can change that as well. But the best way to change that is before we bring that in. And by doing that, we can go to our window tool, select the window that we want to insert, and go into edit type. Just like we created our walls, we want to go into edit type for this one, and we're going to basically be creating a new window. So we want to go ahead and hit duplicate, and we'll rename it. What I'll do is I'll just typically use the same sizing, but I'll put my initials behind it just so it indicates that I'm the one that changed this window. This means it's still a 24 by 24 inch window, but now I want to change the default sill height to say 4 feet, or let's do 3.5. Now all the windows that I drop in from here, from the one I just created, will come in at 3'6". Let me drop this one over here. Let's go to 3D. Should have probably made it more than 6 inches, but you can see the height difference from here. There's 3 foot here and 3.5 foot here. So you can see that different window size, 24 by 24 compared to this one. And when I went in and changed the sill height on this changed to 3'6". Say for instance, you do forget to change the sill height before you put the window in. I can go back, and for each instance of this window that I've inserted, I have to select that And at this time, I can change the sill height as well. So here, if I wanted to change that to 4 foot, notice how that changed to 4 foot. So I can change them all at one time by doing it when before I insert any windows. If I do it after the fact, then I have to select the windows individually or after and change the sill height within the properties itself. And the best way to kind of get used to that is just play with it. Do we have any questions about how to insert windows and doors? Just remember, if you do want to change the sill height before you put in the window, you always want to duplicate and rename that, or it'll get confusing. You just need to make sure that whenever you want to change any parameters within a specific component, you duplicate and you rename it first. All right. Unless we've got any questions about that, we'll go ahead and move on to floors. So once again, in floors, we want to work in the level that we're creating that floor in. For instance, in this one, we're going to create our floor in level 1. At this time, I'm going to just create the slab. And if I go to just an elevation view, it'll give you a better idea what we're looking at. So we're going to create the slab, obviously, and the slab is going to be underneath these walls right here. So after we create the slab, you'll see that it's underneath the house right here. And let's go back to level 1. So we're just going to be working in architecture, but if you go to your architecture tab, build panel, floor tool, you can drop down on floor tools as you progress and you learn more within here. There's different types of floors that we'll be using and creating, but for now, we're just going to go ahead and start with the floor architectural. I'm going to just click on the default. At this time, we want to come over to our properties and our type selector. It automatically generates a floor generic 12-inch. So in here, just do your drop down so you can see what other floors are available. We'll be working with some of these other ones later on, but for this time, we're just going to start with a generic 12-inch floor. But say we wanted to make this actually a thicker floor, we'd want to go ahead and go into edit type. We want to duplicate this. I'm going to create a slab, so I'm going to rename that slab. If I wanted to change this to 18 inches, and I'll just put my initials behind that. Hit OK. At this time, I can go into edit. And since the slab is structural, I'm going to keep that right there with the structure function. I'm going to change the thickness to 18 inches. And I'm going to go into my materials. And I'm going to select concrete cast in place gray for this. And remember to click use render appearance. This is what the appearance looks like. This is what the graphic looks like. We'll hit OK for that. Notice how now we have a structural cast in place concrete slab at 1 foot 6 inches thick. You will be required to do this on your midterm and your final exams, how to change slabs, well, all this stuff, but specifically, it'll look something like this for this one. You can just hit OK all the way out of that. Now, the nice thing about creating slabs and some other things and floors is if we look over here under the modify and create floor boundary tool, it's going to default to picking a boundary line, and it's going to default to picking a wall line. So these are different ways that we can create different boundaries on here. So for this one, we're going to just use the default, which is set to boundary line and pick wall. So what does that mean? That means when we come over this wall, it's going to go active. And if you click on it, where this magenta line is, it's going to show you where that line is going to be for the slab. So I'm just going to create it like this to show you different options that we can do to fix that. But this main boundary line should be on the exterior wall. But say you didn't notice that and you're just kind of clicking around on each exterior wall. And then once you finish picking the boundary lines, you're going to go ahead and click the green check mark, and then we go to 3D to see what happened. Or we can go to, let's go to our south elevation. So if you see something that looks like this slab was not created right. It was created like this when we picked the wrong walls. We should have picked the exterior wall and not the interior wall. So basically right now, what we have is the walls of our house overhanging our slab, which obviously is not very good. So just to get another view of that, what that would look like, we'll go to 3D and kind of spin the house around. And as you can see right here, here's the slab. Here's my slab, here's my walls hanging off of there. Well, I don't need to delete the slab in order to fix that. I can go back to level 1. I can pick my slab. I know this is the slab because in properties I know it's active. Now I can just hit edit boundary up here. And I click on edit boundary and I click on this wall. I notice that my toggles have showed back, and then I can just click that and it flips to the exterior wall. Now I'm going to hit my green check mark and I'm going to go to 3D, and that is fixed. So what's nice about it is you don't need to recreate anything. You can just usually go back and edit it and fix it. There'll be times when things get a little frustrating and you don't want to have to go back and try and edit it all the time. And sometimes the easier option there is just to delete it and to redraw it. But most of the time you can just go ahead into edit boundary. You're going to use edit boundary a lot. You're going to be editing walls a lot, different shapes and things like that to create different aspects of the architecture. And then we're going to go ahead and take this information that we did to create this floor and add to it a little bit in order to create our finished floors. So slabs are really easy. Any questions about slabs before we jump to finished floors?
I have a like 2-level slab where the garage is a little lower, 3.5 inches lower. Can you?
So if we were going to be doing everything on a different level or things like that, we would use an offset for that, and that has to do similar to what we would want to draw for our finished floors. So just to give you a quick example of how that would work, say if I wanted to add like the 3-inch lower piece over here on this section, I go to floors, and you can go to your properties, and now I'm going to do -3 inches, which would go down. I'm going to use my one of my drawing tools because I'm going to draw this over here as like a patio. I'll just use this tool. If I wanted to create that slab there. Check mark and 3D. Actually south. So you'll notice when I changed that dimension height on this new slab section that I drew, it dropped that 3 inches. But I have to do that as a separate slab piece because I can't have this segue into this part. So, but they are connected like here. Let's go to 3D and take a look at that. So they're right next to each other. And if this was, say, if you wanted this to be the same height as this, then you could adjust. You could make another piece of, you would make another aspect of this slab. You'd duplicate and rename it again and make this thickness thinner than this one if you wanted it to have the same bottom elevation on that. Does that make sense? So we're going to use that same concept there to create our finished floors on here. I'm going to go back to my floor level 1. And for this flooring, I want to put just inside of this room. I'm going to use the same tool. I'm going to use my floor tool. I'm going to start with a generic floor. I'm going to edit that. I'm going to duplicate and rename it. And at this time, I'm going to name this floor carpet and my initials. So I'm creating a carpet floor now. So I'm going to go into edit. I don't need to add any of this because we're just going to still be using our floor. I'm going to change this from structure to a finish. For the carpet, I'm going to change the thickness to 1/4 of an inch. And I go into the materials. And we should have a carpet sample in here. Hit OK, OK. And the difference here is I'm not necessarily going to pick the wall boundaries. I'm going to keep boundary line active, but instead of picking walls, I'm going to pick lines. So if I pick on lines, now it'll just pick that interior line that I want. Since this is a finished floor, I want to go ahead and change this to just this inside wall. Notice when I lay that out, I've got all these like extra wall bits that are kind of hanging out over here. This is when we want to go back and use our corner tool and click on the interior angles to just have this section of wall within these room boundaries here. Now, if I hit that green check mark, it's going to give me something that looks like this. And it says highlighted floors overlap. So notice this is a little bit more orange than this one. So that means if I just ignore that and I go to 3D, well, it looks like nothing's going on, does it? That's because I forgot to change the height offset when I created that one. Notice if I highlight this, you can still see there's that other floor kind of like hanging out within my slab. There it is right there. So I need to change the height elevation of that. Well, how do I do that? I've got all this like, you know, it's kind of trapped in the middle of this floor right now. Well, this is where we start using some of our other options as far as hiding things. As we progress through this, you're going to notice in order to create new things, you're going to be hiding stuff a lot. So I'm going to highlight this slab. I'm going to come down to this little temporary hide isolate. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to hit hide element. So that will make that element temporarily go away so I can have access to this floor piece now. I know that temporary hide is on because it says so up here within this cyan border. If, for instance, you go ahead and you close and you save this project and then you close it while a temporary hide is open, when you sign back on, the temporary hide will disappear and you can get back into that. So with this slab hidden, I want to click on this piece of flooring, make it active. Notice this is why it disappeared into the slab because I forgot to change the height offset. Well, I can fix that now. I can just change that to 1/4 of an inch. And the reason I'm making it 1/4 of an inch is that is the thickness that I made this material. I made this carpet 1/4 of an inch thick. So I want the carpet to actually lay on top of the slab. So I have to raise it 1/4 of an inch. And then I hit apply and it disappeared. But now when I hide this wall, you'll see there's my carpet right there. It looks like it went up a little bit too much. It changed to a height of 3 inches. I don't want that. I want that to be 0.25 inches. And that's where it's supposed to be. Now I can reset the things that I've hidden. Let's hide this front wall again. And now when we come over here, we'll see that that carpet that I created is now laying right on top of the slab, just like it would, you know, if you were having carpet laid. So let's do that again. Now, while you're doing this, I want you to also be thinking about the materials that you're going to be using. Remember, when we're creating our floors and different materials within Revit, only some are already loaded into the project. There's times that I'm going to want to load my own materials in there and have that, use that instead of the ones that are already loaded in. So we touched base briefly on how to create materials before, but let's go into how to create materials more so now, and then we'll use that new material to create another floor that's going to be located right here. So frustratingly enough, let's go ahead and everybody drop from this and let's start a new Zoom again. I apologize for the frustration in that. It's frustrating for me also. I'm not sure why it's not working like it's supposed to. But let's everybody drop, and I'm going to start a new Zoom and send you a new invite so we can go from there, and nothing will be confusing. So, all right, let's pause and drop. Thanks, y'all.